Live stream for January 24th, 2022. I am your host, editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, Aaron Schatz, joined as always on Mondays by Ian O'Connor from EdjSports, and we're going to take you through the incredible divisional round weekend that we just enjoyed. Please feel free to ask questions and make comments if you're live streaming right now on YouTube or Twitch. Please make sure you subscribe to our show, like the video, and subscribe to our channel because it helps people find our shows in the future. And we want to spread the word about the Football Outsiders broadcasts. All right, we got to start with last night, the best game of the weekend. Truly lived up to the hype. Bills and Chiefs. A lot of fourth down decisions to discuss, a lot of unbelievably impactful win probability plays to discuss. Just a crazy, insane game that, I mean, some people feel it may have been the best game in the history of the NFL. Like, it was that good.
Yeah, truly lived up to the hype, lived up to the hype and then some 10 times. Like, it was absolutely amazing. Like, it was exciting throughout the game. You know, they were tied pretty much neck and neck. And then into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, just everything kind of exploded. And you mentioned some fourth down decisions. Nothing that really, like last week, we had some at the very end of the game that really kind of decided games potentially. This week, they were a little bit earlier on. It was more of, as you said, impactful plays. That's really the talk of the weekend versus fourth down errors or really good decisions on fourth downs. But this one started off strong with Sean McDermott deciding to go for it on the opening drive, 4th and 2, right at midfield. Ends up being the 5th best fourth down go of the week. Was a 4.3% increase in pre-snap win probability. Josh Allen's able to pick up the first down, getting 10 yards on that play. Then on the same drive to end the drive, it was the 4th best go of the week. On that 4th and goal at the 1, decided to go for it. Pretty much a no-brainer these days, especially in a game against the Chiefs. And flip side, if it would have been the Chiefs on the opening drive against the Bills, that's what you have to go for that. They went for it. It was a 4.6% increase and ended up getting the 1 yard and scoring a touchdown there. So really good to start the game.
I was going to say, one thing about that is you had 2 really important fourth down goes that contributed to the Bills scoring a touchdown. Strangely enough, at the halftime show, they were not mentioned. Yep. Apparently, fourth down goes are only mentioned when they fail. Isn't that interesting?
Right, and that one that we'll get to as well. That, like, to your point, you know, Brandon Staley's was talked about a bunch. We talked about here, said we agreed with that decision, and yet we'll get to the 4th and 1 the Bills had at their own 34, where everyone was calling for him to go for it. So it's really hard to understand, or I guess not hard to understand. People just, when it doesn't work out, you get hammered for it. When it works, it's like, oh, they should have done it anyway. But it kind of, things changed as we got to really outside of the first quarter for the Bills, at least. 8.5 minutes left, coming up halfway through the second quarter. Had a 4th and 4 on their own 49, just a yard shy of midfield. Was aggressive on the first one. This is 2 more yards, a 4th and 4 versus a 4th and 2, and decides to punt now. Tied at 7. It's a 3.5% error. Comes in his 5th worst of the week. It's early on, so it's not as big as it would have been later on in the game. But then Andy Reid on the other side had his first big decision in the third quarter and made a good one. 4th and 1 on the Buffalo 40, about 5 minutes into the third quarter, deciding to go for it, tied at 14. Again, kind of like that 4th and goal for the Bills. Really a no-brainer here when you've got Patrick Mahomes. You're looking at a long field goal of 58 yards or punting, which I don't think Reid would ever do in this situation. Some coaches do. But 4th and 1 on the 40, going for it, picks it up, gets 20 yards on the play. But then is when we get into those questionable calls, and I know people were upset about a couple of these. One of these, the worst call of the week, was that 4th and 1 I just mentioned. Buffalo at their own 34. I think pretty much everyone was calling for them to go for it here. It was actually like a half a yard, if that, that they needed.
It's not that the Chiefs and the Bills scored on every drive, but man, it sure felt like they had the possibility of scoring on every drive, and you just cannot turn over possession in a situation like that.
Yeah, especially with these 2 guys, and that's what we were talking about earlier this morning here, saying, like, with Mahomes and Allen on the other side for both of these teams, it doesn't matter if they get the ball at the 50-yard line or at their own 5. It seems like, to your point, that they're just going to go down and they're going to score no matter where they get the ball, especially as we got into the end of that game. But deciding to punt there, 4th and 1, you've got Josh Allen, too, who's, 6'4", 225 pounds, or whatever, like perfect for picking up a half a yard, 2 yards in deciding to punt was 7.4% error at that point in the game. And then Andy Reid did a little bit of the same. He's got a little bit more cushion on his. Early in the fourth quarter, it's the second worst call. It's 4th and 5 at the Buffalo 46. But again, there's really not much to be gained really in a game in general on punting from the 46, 30 yards of field position in any other game really isn't that helpful in terms of win probability, but especially in this game where the difference between the 5-yard line, the 15, the 20, like it's really not that big of a difference. It doesn't seem like the way these two offenses play. And so this one, the 4th and 5 was a 5.2% error. Just really hate to see it. He made the right call in the 4th and 1. Those 4th and 5s, it'd be interesting to see what his threshold was there. If he was like, if it's a 4th and 3 or less, I'll go for it. But still across midfield in a game like this, it was 23-21. So this was right after Josh Allen had the 75-yard strike touchdown on the first play after the Chiefs scored and missed the extra point. So they're only down, or the Chiefs are only up 2. They already seen that the Buffalo is just going to score, pretty quickly they can. So really surprising. I really thought Andy Reid was going to go for it there, but bringing the team off the field was surprising to see. It turns out the 4th downs, I guess you could say these decisions really didn't have as much of an impact in the long run because they just kind of scored at will as the rest of the game went on.
Well, they did have an impact because if you're scoring at will and you give up the ball, then you're not scoring. Right. We don't know how the game would have been different if the Bills had gone on 4th and 1 on their own 34.
Right. Yeah. As it turned out, it ended up, I was like we said at the top, having impactful plays that were worth a lot more. But yeah, the 4th downs, always important, always meaningful. But this one just they're kind of overshadowed by what happened in the rest of the game.
Right. So the final 2 minutes have 4 of our 5 most impactful plays of the week. It was absolutely crazy. Let's start at the start with 2 minutes left.
Yep. Right at the 2-minute warning coming out. This was right after, I think this was after the play where they had a 3rd and 6, and the Chiefs just kind of blew up a little screen pass that the Bills
terrible.
had
it was where he flipped it to Singletary and they lost 7 yards. It was a terrible play.
Would have been better off just knocking it to the ground in the heat of the moment. It's hard to kind of think and process that. You don't want a chance of it getting batted around or something. But yeah, facing 4th and 13 on the Kansas City 27 seems like this is going to be it. It's almost like, they're not going to get the 4th and 13. They did still have 3 timeouts. They would have had a chance to stop them. But 20 hits Gabriel Davis on a touchdown, 29.6% increase where as it happened, I'm watching like, how was he that wide open? And then you see the route, he just absolutely breaks the
Mike
ankles
Hughes
of that cornerback.
Completely slipped on the grass, and that was that.
Yeah, that one was, again, 29.6, only the 3rd most impactful play. The 4th most impactful came not too long after, a minute 13 left, 2nd and 10 for the Chiefs, their own 36. Mahomes hits Tyreek Hill coming across the field, hits him in stride, and then Tyreek Hill just outruns everyone else, gets to the sideline, heads up, and is gone.
Buffalo has maybe the best safety tandem in the league with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, and Hill just went right past them.
Yep. It was, kind of I don't know who was guarding him when he caught it, but made a dive, almost got him diving at his foot. Was able to get up, and then it looked like maybe a guy had a shot, but watching how fast he is, you're like, I don't know if they're going to catch him. And obviously they did, but that was a 29.5% increase. So just 0.1% less than that Josh Allen touchdown pass. That was number 3. Number 4, and then coming the second most impactful was, after the Chiefs win, you're like, all right, a minute left. Josh Allen, they're good, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it. March down the field, get to the 19-yard line. I think that was the catch. There was a pass interference, but he caught it anyway to get there at the 19. He's only 17 seconds left, and he hits Gabriel Davis again, the 4th touchdown, which really it sucks. Having a great game, you're gonna remember forever. The league's gonna remember forever, and end up losing is just really sucks for them, the team as a whole. But this one, the 4th touchdown, again, got open over the middle, pretty wide open, and Allen was just one of the lasers that he was throwing all game. That was a 35.6% increase in win probability. So at this point, you're thinking it's definitely over. 13 seconds left. That's even not enough time for Patrick Mahomes. But think again, it was our 5th most impactful play, ends up being the 2nd play of that following drive, where Mahomes hits Kelsey, who's wide open, 25 yards down to the 31-yard line. It's a 24.1% increase to set up the game-tying field goal.
And I'll point out the reason why that's the 5th most impactful play and not like the most impactful play is that first you have to make the field goal. So you're not you're not putting yourself in position that you automatically have tied the game. You still have to make the field goal. And second, if you tie the game, it's now 50-50 in overtime. Whereas like the Josh Allen passes for touchdowns were giving you leads that made it so you would win in regulation. This was just to get a tie. So basically what you're shooting for is not 100%. You're shooting for 50-50. So that's why the Travis Kelce play is less impactful than the touchdowns.
Yep. And interestingly, after the touchdown with 13 seconds left, the Bills were up over 90 or just at like 92%. And so Kansas City's got like 8% chance to win because of the kick into the touchback. The model, it kind of expects it being a short kick. It knows how to play out those late game situations because they kicked the touchback, which is a completely different conversation. But because of that, they actually gained almost about 1.5 points in win percentage by having a touchback, no time off the clock, and having the ball at their own 25.
Right, Kansas City gained that. Yeah.
Yes, Kansas City gained it. So Buffalo actually, I was surprised to see it. I didn't think it would be that big of a difference. Again, it's 1.5 points. It's still below 10%, but based on just the fact that no time came off, put them up almost to 10% prior to that.
Right. So Kansas City was at 9.6% when they got the ball with 13 seconds left.
Yeah.
And they built 40.4% win probability, because by the time you get to the start of overtime before the coin toss, it's at 50-50 because we basically had the Bills and the Kansas City. I mean, we had the Bills slightly better than Kansas City, but Kansas City's at home, so it evens out. So we basically had it at 50-50.
Yeah, we had it. Our win probability split was 50.05% in favor of the Bills, and just an unbelievable game. The overtime, there's also the whole conversation about overtime and the rules, and it's one of those when we were doing our podcast earlier with Scott Brown here at Edge, was kind of talking, saying you can be a proponent of the Bills. I think the Bills should have played defense to keep it from getting to overtime. They could have played defense in overtime. The rules are the rules. That's fine. I think you can believe that, and also kind of be upset or think that it's a shame that Josh Allen didn't get a chance to respond just because the game was that good. It was just an amazing game. We didn't want to end.
I think I'm a proponent of learn to play defense. I'm a proponent of, I think the best overtime idea is the split the pizza idea, the cut the cake, whatever they call it, whatever you might want to call it, where the two teams get together and basically have a auction of where are you willing to start with the ball. If you are on offense, are you willing to start on the 20? Are you willing to start on the 19? Are you willing to start on the 18, on the 17, on the 16? An idea that the Ravens proposed to the league last year, which actually comes from an article on Football Outsiders. The idea first came up in an article by Michael David Smith in the first year of Football Outsiders in 2003. Other than that idea, I much prefer this to something like college overtime, where you have this sort of fake start from the 20 where there's just tons of offense. I feel like play defense, play special teams, play an all-around game. If you're kicking off, there's a slight advantage for the team receiving the kickoff, but it's not a huge advantage. You got to play defense. Now, here's the sort of caveat to that. I think that if you want to say play defense, you should give them 5 or 10 minutes to rest, because that defense was freaking wiped. Yeah. And that happens all the time, like including in Super Bowl 51, where a defense gives up the game-tying score and they're completely wiped. And then they lose the coin toss and they have to go out there first and they can't do anything. Yeah. I think if you're going to say play defense, you only deserve to win if you can play defense. You have to give the defense a little bit of rest first.
And I think too, it's one of those things where, this game I think is a perfect example of it, at least from my standpoint, where obviously it's not 100% that either team is going to score when they get the ball. But in this game, I think from watching it, essentially the coin toss won that game, because I think everyone believed whoever got the ball first was going to win that game.
The same thing, yeah. Super Bowl 51 was similar. And I think you want to stay away from that. You can't make it so offenses aren't powerful, but you could give the defense a little bit of rest. Sean McIsaac says, what do metrics say about changing the overtime rules in terms of would it make deferring way better? If you do the college overtime rule, it is much better to be on defense first than on offense. As much as people feel like the college rule is more fair because both teams get the ball, the team that wins the coin toss in college wins overtime more often than in the NFL because of the advantage of being on defense first and knowing what your opponent scored. And therefore, do you have to match a field goal? Do you have to match a touchdown, etc.? So that's the one thing I know about the metrics and changing the overtime rules is that honestly, the college rule is actually less fair than the NFL rule.
Yeah, I've always liked the college rule for the NFL, except having them start like at the opponent's 45. But I mean, there's definitely, I think there's a better way to do the NFLs, but I don't know if anyone really knows the better way to do it. It's one of those you got to kind of figure it out.
Both teams get the touch the ball, but then it's very likely what you would have had was the Chiefs score a touchdown, the Bills score a touchdown, then the Chiefs score a touchdown and win. Yeah. Except it would be sudden death. So actually what you would have had was the Chiefs score a touchdown, then the Bills score a touchdown, then the Chiefs score a field goal and win.
Right.
I will say it's interesting about this game. DVOA thinks Kansas City way outplayed Buffalo. Now, I haven't gone in yet and cut out overtime to see what the numbers would be without the overtime, because obviously Kansas City just a dominant drive.
So 4 plays, I think.
For the game, Kansas City had 78% DVOA and Buffalo had -8%, even after adjusting them upwards for playing Kansas City. Wow. And the Chiefs had a 90% post-game win expectancy. One of the remarkable things about this weekend is that even though all the games are close, by DVOA, they were not. DVOA gave very strong post-game win expectancy to the Rams, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. The only game that comes out super close in post-game win expectancy is Packers versus 49ers, where the Packers have 52% win expectancy.
Yeah, that one's not too surprising. What do you think it is in this game that made the Bills so low? Negative DVOA for this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to have to look a little closer at the splits. The special teams wise, Kansas City was definitely better. And on offense, Buffalo had fewer yards per play and a lower success rate.
Yep.
So their plays were more sort of boom and bust. I mean, you have the 75-yard touchdown, right? Whereas Kansas City's were much more steady gains, which is more of an indicator of future success.
Right.
So I think that's why Kansas City ended up with the much higher DVOA.
Okay.
So that, for example, in weighted DVOA, including the playoffs, last week Buffalo was 2 and Kansas City was 6. And after this game, Kansas City is 2 and Buffalo is 4.
Okay.
So, all right, let's talk about another wild finish, which is the Rams and the Bucs, where Tom Brady almost made 27-3 sound like 28-3. I couldn't freaking believe that. This one, like I said, DVOA also really feels that the Rams outplayed the Bucs, and the big difference in this game was fumble recovery luck.
So yeah, it looked like the Rams were obviously not trying to give it away, but with the Cam Akers fumble and then the snap over Stafford, we weren't even ready for it, and then even on the final drive, Stafford fumbled, was able to recover it, got lucky on that one, recovered it, and still was able to win it. But
fumble recovery luck and fumble recovery location, because the snap over Stafford's head was a 30-yard field position change that was based on something the Tampa Bay had nothing to do with, right?
Yep.
You know, Tampa Bay has no power to make you miss-snap the ball and no power to make you snap the ball that far backward. Let's talk about, it's interesting. The Buccaneers win probability was never that high at the end of this game, even with the comeback, until they probably tied it. Then it was probably reasonably high.
Yeah, when they tied it, they got up to, I think it was 44. like 44.4. Interestingly, because I was looking at that this morning and I was surprised too. I knew it was pretty low. So after they recovered the Akers fumble, was the Akers fumble the one that led to the game tying? I don't remember. Whichever one led to the game tying touchdown.
Yeah, Akers. That was Akers.
That fumble took them up to like 23%. So they still had to score extra point to tie, maybe go for two, but then get to overtime. It was after they tied it on the kickoff, they were up to 44.5. They actually got over 50% on just prior to the Rams' 2nd and 11 play. That was the I think 20-yard completion to Kupp that got them to their
where he
own
got
44.
out of bounds. Yep.
They were at 50.8 prior to that play. So that was their first time over 50% since back in the first quarter, when they had a 2nd and 9 through to 7.5 minutes left in the first quarter. So they actually did get up just over 50%, like you said, right after they tied it, when they were able to get them into a 2nd and long. But as we know, Cooper Kupp had like 2 catches back to back that pretty much shut that down.
Mike Lund asks if there's any chance that I could tweet out the article from 2003. I think you mean not the playoff article, the splitting the overtime pizza article about overtime. If you look in my tweets and replies, you'll see that I sent it to a couple of people last night, or search online for Football Outsiders splitting the overtime pizza, and it will come up. All right. Ian, I guess you are going to have an updated coach rankings video coming on Wednesday, talking more about these coaches and coaching vacancies, which interestingly enough have not been filled yet. Like usually by this point, a couple of the open coaching vacancies are filled. This year, they're not. I think that suggests the teams are really heavily looking at the coordinators on these teams that made the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw it was, I think Brian Daboll was the first one that's gotten a second interview or been scheduled for a second interview with the Giants, if I remember that correctly. But I saw this morning, but I think Dan Quinn and Brian Flores are 2 of the others there. But yeah, the Giants gotten a GM yet? I thought I saw that they did decide.
Yes,
or maybe
Joe Shane. Joe Shane,
okay.
Former assistant GM of the Buffalo Bills, is the new general manager of the New York Football Giants.
So maybe not so surprising, or maybe I would assume that kind of probably makes Daboll the front runner. I haven't seen any of the odds, but
I still think Daboll's a better fit for Chicago, because I would love to have Daboll with Justin Fields, but he's definitely in the mix in the Giants. And it's interesting, all those Panthers people that went to Buffalo are now starting to spread out throughout the league. So, I mean, Buffalo's a very well-run team, so I'm not going to begrudge them that hire. Let's look
at some of those.
What'd you say?
So we'll look at I would say be looking at the coaching vacancies, also kind of previewing the coaching matchups for the conference championships as well. So that'll be fun to look forward to.
2 conservative coaches in McVay and Shanahan going up against each other, and then
Zach Taylor's kind of hit or miss for the
less conservative coaches in the Cincinnati Kansas City game. Let's put up the graphic on the most impactful plays, most of which we've already covered, one of which we haven't. So 4 of these plays are from the last 2 minutes of the amazing Chiefs-Bills game.
Yep, we've got the 4 that we covered there. Interestingly, too, before we get to the number 1, someone did ask when we put these out on Twitter about the blocked punt from San Francisco not being up there. That one actually ties for number 6. So it's just outside the top 5 at 20.8% decrease for the Packers on the blocked punt touchdown that the 49ers scored. It's tied with a Joe Burrow interception late in the third quarter. Both of those were 20.8%. But yeah, the number 5 through number 2 are all from the Bills-Chiefs game. And then number 1, probably no surprise, Ryan Tannehill's 3rd interception of the game late in the fourth quarter, only 20 seconds left. That set up Joe Burrow to hit Jamar Chase on the very next play, getting them in field goal range, and then Evan McPherson hitting that winner. But the interception was a 40.8% decrease in win probability, and just a really bad game from Tannehill.
Yeah, unlucky. I mean, some of those picks were like off guys' hands, but his receivers didn't really do him any favors, especially the receivers who are not named A.J. Brown or Julio Jones. And Henry wasn't really playing that well either.
Yeah, a lot of the people, and we'll get to it, the 4th down they went for, and just in general, I've seen a lot of people kind of never thought I'd hear people say this, but kind of questioning the usage of Derrick Henry perhaps saying that, Foreman had looked a little bit better. No, he had the really long gain
Yeah.
that led to him having more yards. But I think there's question on, was it the 3rd and 1 before their 4th down? It was a Tannehill, was it a sneak or something, instead of using Derrick Henry on 3rd down as well. But
and yes,
so, yeah.
the first pass play of the game, which I think was the first play of the game,
Yep.
was an interception. That is correct. True Mac says yes. Tannehill threw an interception on the first play of the game. Let's talk about the 5 best coaching decisions, some of which we've covered already, some of which we have not yet covered.
Yep, number 5 and number 4 we covered. There were the opening drives for the Bills. 4th and 2 at the 50 was worth 4.3% pre-snap win probability, and then the 4th and goal at the 1-yard line was 4.6. 49ers, Packers. This one is another one of those that kind of borders on one of those obvious decisions that we wouldn't normally include. The relative increase in win probability was kind of within that threshold we typically use, but they're down 7, 6:14 left. They do still have all 3 of their timeouts. Choosing to go for it instead of kicking a field goal ended up being a 5.1% increase in pre-snap win probability. I don't think there's any coach that's going to kick a field goal there. But we still included it.
Or there used to be. I don't know if there are at this point, but 5 years ago, oh, hell yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, down 7 to try and cut it to 4 so you can win with a touchdown. But make the right decision this week after that horrible decision by Shanahan last week. This one backfires, goes for it, doesn't get it. But the decision to go for it was good. It was a 5.1% increase. The Titans one that comes up at number 2 is a similar situation. As far as they go for it, they don't get it. It's still the right call. In this one, they were tied at 16. So instead of going for a 53-yarder to take the lead with 7.5 minutes left, so halfway through that 4th quarter, deciding to go for it. We like the call there as well. 6.1% increase in pre-snap win probability for the Titans. Again, that one didn't work. Henry got stopped 2 yards short. And then number 1 was Andy Reid. We covered the 4th and 1 at the 40. That's just with the Chiefs, that offense with Patrick Mahomes, 4th and 1 in that territory where it's a long field goal. If you punt, it just doesn't make much sense to punt. So that one was worth 8% in win probability.
Don't forget to make comments on the live stream. If you're listening after the fact on the Football Outsiders Podcast Network, you should be watching the live stream at 1 p.m. Eastern on weekdays, because we take comments and questions and we answer them. And you want to also like and subscribe to our videos and channels on YouTube and Twitch. Todd Singer says, Arians not going for 2 when scoring a touchdown down 14. What general range is that in? Yeah, so the not going for 2 when down 14 thing is actually a very tiny change in win probability, because usually when this situation comes up, your win probability is so low that the change in win probability is going to be very low.
Yeah,
it's still, you should still do it right.
Yeah, if that's the case, in this one, it's 0.3%. It's a 4.5 versus 4.8% in win probability. But to your point, it's more so of, I think, just the underlying math and the probabilities that say you should go for it, except the process of it. But the chances of it actually playing out where you win are pretty low, whether you go for it or not in those situations. But yeah, it ends up being less than 0.5%, but still the wrong call. And Aaron, like you said yesterday, Arians really isn't the coach, it seems like, that's going to do that or even think about that in a game.
Chad Reuter says the Bills' late 4th down punt from their 35-yard line. I believe that we did discuss that one already, right?
So yes, we did. That was the 4th and 1 at the 34 that comes out. That was the worst error of the
call of the week.
7.5%.
Let's bring up the graphic with the worst calls of the week. Speaking of that play, which was the worst call of the week. Number 5, we already covered when we talked about the Bills-Chiefs game.
Yep, that's the 4th and 4, just shy of midfield at the 49, was 3.5%. Number 4 is just above that at 3.6%. It's the Titans, a similar situation, except they're down 6, or right at the start of the 2nd quarter, so early in the game. 4th and 3, just shy of midfield at the Tennessee 47. And this one's kind of surprising with Vrabel, because I think he's thought of as aggressive sometimes. He's actually 9th, or in the regular season, he was 9th in CCI, which is our 4th down decision-making metric. But he's one of those that I think you don't expect to be that high. he's just
But he
kind
is,
of
right. Like Dan Campbell, because he's kind of old school gruff, you don't expect him to be analytical, but he is.
Yep. And so that one is number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Matt LaFleur, Green Bay. He had a couple of them in this game. This one, the other one doesn't show up. This one on here is the 4th and 4 at their own 38, halfway through the third quarter. They're up 7-3 at this point. Just decides not to go for it. The way the games go, this is one of those, I think, playing with the feel of the game. They could never really get anything going. The turning point for me, and I've thought back to this game a million times being a Packers fan. Yesterday was it was tough to watch football yesterday, but the turning point was the Mercedes Lewis fumble. Green Bay was moving the ball very well until that point. They'd scored on the opening drive. They held them. They got to San Francisco 40 and fumble, and everything just kind of fell apart there. And so I think this is one of those where LaFleur was kind of playing the flow of the game and kind of how he felt it, but still with Aaron Rodgers, a 4th and 4, your own 38, you're getting close to midfield. You're not so far deep in your own territory. The defense was playing well too. Going for it here would have given them 4%, 4.1% greater win probability. The other one that doesn't show up ends up being it's that 4th and 2 where they tried to just draw them off sides. And this one actually comes in at number 6. So it's just outside at 3.2%, but just trying to draw them off sides on 4th and 2 from their own 46 halfway through the second quarter. This one is, I'm actually surprised that it's not higher than the other one. I guess the biggest thing here is just time. That one came halfway through the second quarter. But that one was a 3.2. So he's got 2 of the top 5 here. And number 3 is that 4th and 4.
Todd Singer says, looking back, the Green Bay offense attempting 4th and 4 is less risky than the Green Bay punt team punting. It's an interesting debate as to which is more painful as a fan. Would you rather be me and my team went out there and got completely freaking crushed in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you rather be you and your team played close, but had your heart ripped out at the end?
Yep. I actually thought about that before we came on here because I had a feeling something like that would come up. And this, I was trying to kind of yesterday thinking about it, ranking the kind of like the worst Packers losses that I can remember. I don't think anything tops the 2014 Seattle meltdown. No. The Brett Favre Giants game in the NFC Championship is probably number 2. This one for me might be number 3, just not only because of the game, but the expectations. The 1 seed, you're at home, could be Rodgers' last game as a Packer in the NFL. Devontae Adams is set to be a free agent, can franchise him, but if Rodgers leaves, does Adams want to stay? I think just the overall situation, losing this game was very tough. I still think I'd rather it be close than to get completely blown out and like never even have it, like the whole game basically after the first quarter, you really don't care about watching the game. But it does make it worse in the end, like at that moment when you lose.
I think I was more chipper last Monday than you are because because it's not like 1 or 2 plays made the difference, right? Like Buffalo just crushed New England and it was just never going to be the Patriots' day. And so you move on. And just like it's interesting, I'm thinking just of the results of the games, but you're right in that how you feel for you, that may have been the quarterback's last game in town. Whereas for us, it's, our quarterback is a rookie and maybe he'll get better, although it certainly doesn't look like he's as talented as Herbert. I don't think there's anything that stops him from, I don't think there's anything that would stop Mac Jones from being Joe Burrow. I don't think Burrow particularly has more arm talent than Joe. Burrow is just amazing at deciphering what's going on with the defense and deciding where to go with the ball. And I think Jones could become that. He'll never become Herbert or Allen or Mahomes.
Right. And I think too, the expectations, like being a rookie quarterback, like no one really expected them to make the playoffs really, or maybe compete for a Super Bowl.
The expectations for the Packers have been sky high all year.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple plays here and there. Like I mentioned the Lewis fumble, the Aaron Jones on the long 75-yarder. It looked like he kind of tried to cut in and fake him. Where I thought if he would have just kept going to the end zone, he maybe gets in or gets to the 5 or 10, but then not even getting a field goal out of that, getting it blocked. Obviously, the blocked punt. If that punt doesn't get blocked, San Francisco's maybe close to midfield, but 4.5 minutes left, and we're playing with a 7-point lead versus tied, and just Rodgers missing Lazard on the third down. Just there was 3 or 4 plays there that you just kind of keep going back to and thinking about that it's tough. Luckily, the game was on Saturday, so I had yesterday to deal with it a little bit. But yeah, it's still not great. It'll be a little while, I think.
All right. Don't forget, you can find these top fives and more at the EdjSports.com top 5 editorial section. That's EdjSports.com. Once again, thank you to everybody who is watching our show or listening afterwards on the podcast network. No stream tomorrow. Wednesday is the Ask Us Anything show. We'll be back at 1 p.m. Eastern. So please make sure you subscribe to the show, give a review. It helps people find us in the future. Want to thank everybody for watching and listening. Thank you, Ian, for joining me as always. And we will talk to you on Wednesday. Also, I forgot to mention, thank you, whoever just put up the graphic. Splash Play is the big fantasy show with Chris Spagnolo. Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 2:30 p.m. on this same bat time, same bat channel. Actually, a different bat time, same bat channel. So also, you definitely want to check out Splash Play for DFS advice and looking at fantasy. It will be on at 2:30 Eastern this afternoon, and then we will be back Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So long, everybody.